All right, so this is our fourth study in our series of Bible studies we've created. And today's lesson is called Committed to Christ. You know, there's a lot of people in their Christian experience or their Christian walk that are sort of in and out, up and down with their relationship with God. And, you know, we really want to look at and focus on what does it take to have a real meaningful relationship with God? What does it take to have a meaningful walk with Christ? So we're going to break that down today. Again, I've got Clayton with me. How's it going, man?
Very good.
You good?
Visitor, not visitor.
Exactly. You're a permanent visitor.
Permanent visitor.
All right, so we're going to start reading today in the New Testament, Luke, chapter 7. We're going to read a story from verses 36 to 50.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and read that for us.
All right, Luke 7. I'll start from 36. It says, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from the city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet weeping. Her tears fell on his feet and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. Then Jesus answered his thoughts. Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I've something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. Then Jesus told him the story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other. But neither of them could repay him, so he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the larger debt. That's right, Jesus said. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust off my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven, so she has shown me much love. But a person who is forgiven little shows only little love. Then Jesus said to the woman, your sins are forgiven. The men at the table said among themselves, who is this man that he goes around forgiving sins? And Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace.
All right, man, let's unpack this story, eh? Break it down to me, man. Break it down for me.
So, obviously, you know, Jesus is invited to dinner. And this woman is present, whether present as an invited guest or whatever the case is. She makes it to the party. Maybe she gate crashes the scene. But, you know, it's interesting that, you know, this guy, because Jesus was a nobody in Jewish terms in their time, he wasn't a deacon, an elder, a priest, a Pharisee, a rich man, nothing, you know. But he was the Son of God to those who really knew who he was. And obviously to Simon, he just thinks, oh yeah, you know, this is the kind of new kid on the block, you know, the new preacher. And he didn't really acknowledge who Jesus really was. And I think Simon is Simon the leper who Jesus healed. So not a lot of gratitude for that, you know. And this woman who is used to people ridiculing her, looking down on her, she's known as the scum, whereas Simon is a Pharisee, you know, so he's used to people's esteem and praise. This woman is nobody. And Jesus comes and does for her what she needs the most. Because you can imagine, not that I've been a prostitute, but I've been a guy who sleeps around, which, even though we don't call it prostitute, if you sleep around, you're a prostitute. Thing, right? You just don't get paid for it. Actually, you're worse off.
We should have been getting paid.
Yeah. You're worse off, you know. So her reputation, the way we all view prostitutes, and to have someone accept you, forgive you, bro, we take it for granted, you know, because like most of us don't have close friends who are prostitutes, you know. And here, Jesus befriended her. like he didn't see her as the plague in a religious community, bro. You know, so to me, the most standout thing here is just, Jesus's mercy and acceptance of people who we view as dodgy, scum, low class. Like, nah, man, I'm not gonna be seen walking with her. He accepted them, came close to them, and it changed their lives.
That's deep, man. Yeah, you see her, it really changed her life because of the way that her outward act was to him, you know. And it's like you said, both of them had encounters with Christ who had done something for them. But it shows a difference in the gratitude between the two of them. And it's like, you know, he says to Simon, you haven't done any of this stuff for me when I came into your house, even though I healed you of leprosy. But, you know, this woman has done all this stuff for me, even though she was classified as someone who was the lowest of the low in society. And it's like, you know, she didn't care if anyone saw her doing this for Christ, you know, using this expensive ointment to anoint his feet, you know. And it's like, I'm not ashamed for people to see what I'm going to do to Christ, even though people know what I am and what I've done in my past. And it's like, you could see her commitment to Christ, you know, in this story. You know, she really loved him and she was so grateful for what he had done for her.
That's right.
And on the other hand, Simon was a bit different. But, you know, I think about my own experience when I first came to Christ. I didn't really understand who he was, you know. So it's like, when people would talk to me, oh, you're a Christian or something like that, I'd be ashamed to say that I was, or if I was trying to keep the Sabbath or something like that, you know, I'd be making excuses. I was just doing something else, you know. I was like, I really was embarrassed in a sense because I hadn't really given my life fully to God, and I couldn't see what he really had done for me, you know. The gratitude was completely different, and it's like, this woman was all in.
She was all
where
in.
I was sort of a bit back, and Simon wasn't all in on Christ, you know.
That's deep. That's deep, you know, especially just, you know, that not really knowing who Christ is, and you kind of hold back and you are a little bit ashamed. I remember that too, you know, a little bit ashamed. And you know, kind of focusing on externals, wanting people to kind of perceive just what the outside is like, you know, because you really don't have anything internal to say about Christ, you know. It's interesting that the guy Simon, you know, says, if this man were a prophet, he would know what manner of woman it is who's touching him, for she's a sinner. And so you can kind of see the kind of attitude he had. And obviously it's a general mindset of, oh, yeah, no, those are the unclean ones. You know, we don't hang out with them. Because even touching Christ was like, look, he's letting her touch him.
Yeah.
So imagine just, you know, you'd be like, oh, I better wash myself. Better wash my hands. She's touched me. And imagine being treated like that in society, you know, where it's like, oh, nah. And here, because Jesus accepted her, she didn't feel rejected. She didn't feel disgusting. None of that. She was even kissing his feet. Like you say, she wasn't ashamed of anything because he wasn't ashamed of her. And so she wasn't ashamed of him, you know. Whereas he was ashamed of Jesus. He wasn't wanting to honor him like some special person because, you know, I'm a Pharisee and all my other buddies are around, you know.
And it's funny because he was saying, what woman, like the manner of the woman touching you, even though he had leprosy. So he would have been unclean, you know. If anyone touched him, they could catch it, you know. He would have been in that same position. But she didn't have that. But he had that. And and now he's looking at her like in that same sort of way. So it's, he hadn't really experienced, you know, Christ or had that gratitude for him. Yeah.
Bro, that's deep. That's very deep. That he was in a similar predicament, so he should have sympathized with her, but he thought nah, because, you know, his rank was kind of what he esteemed the most. Whereas, you know, Jesus saw her heart, you know, not her outward rank or
exactly, man.
Deep, bro. That was a deep point.
All right, anything else to add? No. We'll move on. All right, we'll go to the Old Testament. So Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verses 4 to 9.
So while we're on our way there,
you got something?
I just had the thought, you know, it says, to whom much is forgiven, the same loves much, and to whom little is forgiven. And so obviously Simon didn't see himself as much of a sinner, and so he just couldn't force himself to love Jesus.
Exactly.
And I think that's the key cornerstone for actually building a true relationship with Jesus, because he came to forgive people of their sins. And when you really see that you are a sinner, Jesus becomes so precious. It's like the antidote to your disease. It's like, man, I got to have this guy, you know? And so you don't have to force it then. The love is genuine when you really see your need, that you are a sinner, and really Jesus is able to heal that. No need to pretend.
Yeah.
All right. Enough said.
But I think that really does flow on from even our last study that we just did,
Yeah.
You have to see your condition, to really
Totally.
see what Christ has done for you and see the magnitude of it. Because if you don't, it's not a big deal,
You just won't,
It's like, it wasn't that big of a deal because
Yeah.
I'm not really that bad.
I don't need saving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man, you want to read?
All right. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you." It says, "Repeat them again and again to your children. You shall talk about them when you're at home, when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands." It says, "Bind them to your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates."
Man, all right. What lessons do we learn from that?
Yeah, I suppose, it's like when you become a Christian, and you realize what God has done for you, it's not like your side hustle,
Yeah.
or your side chick.
Yeah.
It becomes, your identity. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is who I am, and I'm also a Christian. But it becomes who you are because, God puts away the old person, because I don't want to be that old me,
Yeah.
It's like I'm a new person, and this new person is totally because of God and what he's done. And so I don't want to be that part-time. That's the person I want to become. And that's kind of saying, it becomes every part of your life. I want to be that kind of dad, that kind of worker, that kind of friend. Every part of my life, I want to be permeated with the mindset of Christ and the character of Christ,
Man, I can totally resonate with that, because I think even, like I said, when I first became a Christian, sort of would just pick and choose, when I wanted to sort of delve into seeing who Christ was and wanted him in my life. And then other aspects of my life, I was still living an old way, living in my old self. And it's like, yeah, my experience sort of was jaded by that, because I couldn't give up that stuff. I wanted to still do that stuff, but it really is a whole lifestyle change. Like whatever you do, whatever you say, you live and breathe Christianity fully. You live and breathe Christ fully. And it's a complete change. Yeah. It's deep, man.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. A huge part of my initial journey, I was like a Pharisee, just super radical, and I missed that element in this verse, which says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. A lot of it was fear, because I thought, the world is coming to an end and I don't want to be lost. So a lot of it was driven by fear, because I had studied the prophecies. It's like, whoa, man, And the element of actually coming to love God for who he is, I didn't even give myself that opportunity. I was just driven by fear and not wanting to be left behind in a way,
Yeah.
And so even my interactions with people were all about prophecies and the last days and the end of the world and all of that kind of stuff. But in terms of like people saying, man, Clayton's become a loving person. No one was saying that, because I was all about the prophecies. And here it's like, how did I miss that? That's the foundation part of everything I was being called to be, is loving, because God is loving, but I missed it, bro.
And many people miss it. So I think that's a good point to highlight, because I was in the same way of thinking like, I've got to know what the Bible says so I can prove someone wrong.
Ready to debate.
Yeah, ready to debate something, and I'll have the upper hand. But you totally miss that love aspect of, really seeing who Christ is and seeing his love, and it channels through to us to be able to show that to others. And I think many people miss that. So I think that's one takeaway that people need to really focus on.
And I wanted to convert the world in my unconverted state with no love. And it was like I was doing more damage than good, because, the Christian I was portraying was the God that everybody doesn't want. you know,
Exactly.
which is not the God of the Bible. That's not Jesus, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, like God is love, right? Because even Paul says, you know, I can do all these things, like if I can prophesy or do all this stuff, but if I do it without any love, you know, without that real conversion, it doesn't profit anything.
Yeah.
So
It's useless.
it's actually, that's a very important point. Good work, man. All right, anything else to add? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go to 1 Corinthians
Yeah.
chapter 9 and verse 24 to 27.
Yeah. Okay, it says, "Don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I'm not just shadow boxing." The other translation says, "Not as one who beats the air.
Yeah.
I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified."
All right, man, break this down.
I'm
I'm sure you've got some examples you can use for this one.
Personal relation here. Yeah, obviously, you know, I was a sprinter. So, you know, I remember my coach's conditions were, you know, no girlfriends. I wasn't allowed a girlfriend, which reasons I now understand. But then I was like, what? Had to be in bed by 10. You know, I trained 5 a.m. every morning. I had to train 4:30 in the afternoon every day. So it was like gym, track. And then I used to have to get a massage after that, see the physios, and then have a sherry drink so that I can have a good sleep. But, you know, I was willing to sacrifice all of that, you know, to give up time with friends. You know, I gave up so many things in my life, you know, and it was regimented. Everything I ate there was no kind of, I feel like this. It's like everything was planned, you know. My whole day was planned out, and I was willing to give up those freedoms because I wanted that gold medal. I wanted that championship. And it's like, yeah, you know, if you were willing to do that for just a gold medal, like I gave them all, I don't even have any of them now. Like, how much more eternal life, you know? How much more? Because I wanted to please my coach too, because he had sacrificed for me. So how much more to please Christ who died for me? You know, God who saved me. So I can relate to the illustration, you know? It's like, yeah, all in. If you're going to win, you're going to be all in.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
How about you, bro?
Yeah, I wasn't a sprinter, but this sport analogy also resonates with me because, I was playing rugby and my whole life was rugby, you know. So similar to you, you know, I had trainings every morning, and then I had trainings in the evenings, not every night, but so my whole life was fully consumed by it, you know, and that's all I lived for, really. That's the only thing I looked forward to. I loved it, like every day getting up doing that, and looking forward to playing on the weekends. And it's like, I didn't think about anything else. Everything else always came second to that.
Absolutely.
It didn't matter what it was. And it's like, Paul's really trying to say here that we need to have that same mindset if we're looking towards eternal things, you know, committing our life fully to Christ. Because like you said, we commit ourselves to win a medal, and you said you don't even have those medals anymore.
Right,
like if our team won a championship, you know, wins the title, next year you just do it all again. And it's like you just give it back and your team goes down in history as winning in that year, but no one really remembers, you know what I mean? But you put in all that effort just for that one time. So like, how much more to gain eternal life? When it's so much more important.
Absolutely.
When I thought rugby was everything, but when I look in the terms of life, it's nothing, man. Like, it's just a game.
Yeah. I mean, here it says as one who beats the air, you know, because you think, wow, okay, you ran, you crossed the line before someone else. So now what? You know, how are you a different person because of that? How has the world become a better place because of you? How have you taken away world suffering? Nothing. You know, it's made no difference. And yet, in my mind, I was just the bee's knees. You know, it's like, wow, man, my moment of fame, my moment of glory, you know. And I just thought I was like so important, so special that I had achieved so much. And yet, actually, like you say, if you ask someone who's Clayton, they've all long forgotten, like, who was that dude?
Yeah. You get like 5 minutes of fame and then that's it,
it's
really.
gone.
You know what I mean?
You know,
Yeah.
You know that verse Jesus says, you know, what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And I think that's really it, you know, that what use is gaining all of that in the end you lose your soul.
Yeah. It's not worth it, eh?
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it at all, man. All right. Anything else to add?
No.
I think one point, really to add is that, yeah, you really are willing to give it all for things on this earth. And you know what it takes as an athlete. We both know what it takes as an athlete, the time and dedication you have to put into it. And sometimes you still don't even get there, you know what I mean? To where you really want to get to.
Absolutely.
So it's like, speaking especially to people who are Christians, it's like, how can you put in a half-hearted effort and expect to get the winning prize, you know what I mean, in our spiritual life? Because it doesn't work in the physical. So, we need to really think, I can't just sort of be half in and half out for Christ. I need to give it all if I want to obtain that golden prize, Yeah. Anyway, I sort of just went off what you were saying.
No, you said it perfectly. Nothing to add, honestly.
All right. We'll move on to Luke. So back to Luke, unless you got anything to say.
No.
All right, Luke chapter 14.
Yeah.
Verses 27 to 33.
Yeah. I think the logic resonates with anyone who's striving for success. They know you're not going to get there sitting on your butt, doing nothing. It takes effort. It takes sacrifice. But the biggest work Christ has already done.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to save ourselves.
No.
We're just trying to, make the most of the gift we've been given, rather than just doing nothing and expecting to enjoy the Christian experience, to conquer battles, to thrive, to succeed, to experience miracles. It's like you're just sitting around and not even treasuring what you've got. You're not going to beat the devil doing that.
I think it's an important point, though, because it's sort of in that you could easily take that in terms of, okay, I've got to do this and I've got to do that because that's going to get me in favor of God and to win that prize, of getting to heaven. But it's not that, like you said, Christ has already done all the work.
Absolutely.
But it's just giving your will to Him, committing your life to wanting to follow Him. And that's not always easy when you first, when you become an athlete, when you first go to the gym, it's hard, man. It's hard work until you get better and better and better.
You get sick and vomit.
And you get stronger, and then it becomes easier, And I think that's with the Christian walk as well. Like, it's not always easy to follow Christ, and you don't always want to do it. Because I experienced that many times, and it's like, but I had to choose to, even though I don't want to do this, God, I'm still going to just give you my will and try, you know what I mean, to commit my life to you.
Totally.
And that's all we can do.
It's like a marriage that you don't work at all. It's like, I don't even bother buying you gifts, saying nice things, nothing, and I expect you to just love me more and more each day, just do everything for me.
Bro, I've heard someone that actually said that, like, oh, I already love you, I don't have to say it, I don't have to do any of this stuff. Well, that marriage ended. Bro.
Right, of course, it's not going to last, bro. It's not going to last.
No.
And so, why wouldn't, if it's really a relationship with God, why wouldn't it be worth investing in?
Yeah.
I want to be more loving. I want to be more caring. And I have to work at it,
I agree, man. Totally agree. All right, you want to read Luke 14?
Yep. All right. Okay. Where are we starting?
27 to 33.
All right. It says, if you do not carry your own cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there is enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, there's the person who started the building and couldn't afford to finish it. Or what king would go to war against another king without first sitting down with his counselors to discuss whether his army of 10,000 could defeat the 20,000 soldiers marching against him? Sounds like the movie 300. And if he can't, he will send a delegation to discuss terms of peace while the enemy is still far away. So you cannot become my disciple without giving up everything you own. 33a, yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. So this is Jesus speaking. So let's unpack this a little bit. What's sort of standing out to you here? What are you learning from this?
Am I allowed to cheat a little bit and add what wasn't in the story?
Yeah.
So,
I'll let you do it this time.
So just 25.
I knew you were going to go.
25 is saying a large crowd was following him, And you think to yourself, like, people are desperate today to get followers, subscribers, likes. And here Jesus had crowds of followers. And then he says, look, you can't be my disciple just by following me around. because I'm not about just numbers
Yeah.
and followers and bums on seats, as people say, what I represent is the kingdom of God, and those who want to be part of that kingdom, it's like there are people who are willing to do everything, for what is right, to make sacrifices to make the world a better place, to serve God with everything they have because of what he's done for them. It's like, yeah, of course, And so if you're not interested in that cause, then don't worry about following me. Like, he wasn't desperate. He wanted people to actually think about what it was they were after. It's like, man, I do want eternal life. I do want the forgiveness of sins. I do want to, develop a relationship with God, and I want to give it everything. That's what it's saying to me, And if I'm not that keen, he's not even forcing. He's like, don't worry.
Yeah.
You get on about your business if you're not interested. Don't worry about following me. Because otherwise it actually hindered the work he was trying to do, to just have people who didn't actually want to do what he represented,
It's interesting, because he's saying, like, I want people who are 100%.
100%.
Not like 90% or 80%. I need you to be 100% if you want to follow me. And, like, it's counting that cost, because I think we both had to do it, right? You would have had to do it. I would have had to do it as a Christian. Like, when you first come to Christ, it's like, okay, I'm learning this stuff. I'm seeing who Christ is, but am I really willing to go all in
All the way.
and let go of these old things that I'm doing in my life that are going to hinder my relationship? Because, you can't be with your wife and have another side chick, like you said, and think that the relationship's going to go good. You need to be fully in for your wife. And that's the same thing, like you said, with Christ. Like, are you willing to give it all up to follow him? Like, is he that important to you because of what he's done? And then, even, like he said about the king going with 10,000, is he going to count the cost? Would he be able to defeat the one with 20,000? It feels like sometimes that you are outnumbered, I think, as a Christian.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, because, you're tempted by these things that you've done before. You feel like everything is coming down on you hard. And it's like you feel like you're the 10,000 against the 20,000 things battling you. And it's like, it may look like that on the outside, but when you have Christ, Satan's already a defeated foe. You actually have the strength.
Bro, that's so deep.
So it's I can see you want to say
bro,
something. Go,
no,
so
you go.
Good.
The point
you go, man. You go.
Is so good.
Go.
So good.
You can.
I mean, honestly, like, I've never ever seen it like that, because in reality, he's like, look, you're gonna be in the minority.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be the popular few.
Exactly.
It's like you're not going to be getting the attention of men. People are going to be excluding you. You're going to have to say no to things when everyone else is going that way. You're going to have to stand up when no one else wants to. And you're not going to be popular because of that, I mean, it got him killed. And I think it's good to lay out the terms and conditions. Like, look, this is really what it's going to be like. You really want to do this? You sure you want to do this? Yeah, I really want to do it. That shows how loving he is. That, look, this is no call to fame or popularity. You're not going to be the new kids on the block. No, this is a life of sacrifice, of diligence and commitment, and you're free to not choose it.
Exactly, man.
But that's what it takes.
Exactly. All right, we're coming to. We got to wrap up right now. We got to wrap up, but
that was a good point.
But I think, people have to really examine themselves, and they have to ask themselves that question, am I really willing to give it all up and give it all for Christ, and willing to hedge all my bets with him after, everything that he's done for me. And I think that's really, really the point of this study, is what we really wanted to get out. But you got any final remarks?
No.
All right, man.